Hi, I'm Mike Williams, candidate for sheriff. I started JSO in 1991, and like everybody, started as a line-level patrol officer in the northwest part of the city. I spent 23 years serving this community, and over those 23 years, worked my way up through the ranks, serving at every supervisory level in the agency, until I recently retired in August to campaign full-time. When I left the agency, I was the Director of Patrol and Enforcement, and in that position I had command of 1,100 police officers every day and oversight of about half of the sheriff's $400 million budget. I'm excited about the opportunities that we have here in Jacksonville. I'm excited about the opportunity to run for sheriff, and I'm asking for your vote on March 24th.
Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about what steps you would take to avoid a replay of Ferguson, Missouri here in Jacksonville?
You know, we have answered a lot of questions about Ferguson, Missouri during the campaign, and I can tell you that not knowing anything about the events, really, the details of the events that started the issues in Ferguson, I can tell you that prior to that shooting occurring, there were issues in Ferguson, Missouri between that law enforcement agency and that community long before that event occurred. And I think what's important to realize is that as a law enforcement professional, you have to, and leader of an organization, you have to constantly gauge your relationship with the community, and it's something you have to work on every day. And in looking at that case, I feel like that agency had lost touch with that community, and the leader should have picked up on that and recognized that and taken steps to rectify that long before, again, that situation occurred. So I think for us here in Jacksonville, we are in a good place right now. We have a good relationship with the community, but it's not something you rest on. I think it's something that you have to constantly work on every day. I tell people all the time, there's not a law enforcement agency in the country that can be successful unless it has the support of its community, and there's no substitute for that. And it's something that you really do have to work on to develop every day. So I promise, you know, as your next sheriff, I'm going to work hard to do that every day, and it's important for our community and our agency as well.
Mike, would you talk about how you would make the illegal drug trade here in Jacksonville really tough?
Well, I can tell you, listen, I'm the first candidate and have been saying from the beginning that the violence that we see here in Jacksonville, which is a huge issue that we have to get ahead of, it's been a challenge for us for many years, is really driven by the drug trade here. You know, we did a murder study back in the beginning of 2013. And at the time I was the Director of Investigations at Homeland Security. And we look back every year at the murders that occurred the previous year to try to identify a driver. Is there a root cause? You know, are they connected in some way? And we were able to determine that of the 93 murders that occurred in 2012, that 75% of those murders were drug related. So knowing that, we realized we have a significant violence problem that's driven by the drug trade here. So we have to really focus efforts there and you know, come up with a good comprehensive strategy to get ahead of it once and for all. When you talk about the strategy, there's a lot of different pieces to that strategy, and I can tell you that it involves leveraging state and federal partners, which we do every day. It involves really training for line-level patrol officers on the street in recognition and what they can do to impact the drug trade at the street level. But it's a multi-level, multifaceted approach that we have to take to really get ahead of the issue once and for all. I'm the only candidate in the race with significant experience in that area. And I look to put that experience to work. Really, I'm committed to make Jacksonville the hardest city in America to deal drugs in. And if we can do that, we'll get ahead of the violence problem. It's really been a challenge for us for many years.
Terrorist training for local law enforcement coming from the federal government may be politically correct and not adequately train officers to identify and halt terrorist activity. What changes in law enforcement training would you make as sheriff?
You know, for years in Northeast Florida, we have had the benefit of having a great relationship with our state and federal partners, especially in terms of, you know, terrorism training and response, those type of things. So, you know, through our regional domestic security task force, we partner with those agencies every day. And when it comes to training, we're able to participate in the delivery and the development of that training so that we do get the right training to the officers on the street. We were able to bring to really all of the Northeast Florida region the iWatch program years ago. And that program really is an anti-terrorism program designed to develop an officer's awareness of things that may lead to, you know, clues, small clues that could eventually deter a terrorism attack in our community. And we were able to implement that program here in Jacksonville. We did it region-wide as well, and a great success. And we didn't see the political correctness that some people have seen around the country. We didn't see that here with the program. We were able to train our officers in suspicious activity reporting and get those reports into the iWatch system. You know, and through that system we collaborate with you know, our local partners, St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, Clay County Sheriff's Office, as well as FDLE and the FBI every day on that information that we bring in. And you know, if you look back to 9/11, one of the big things that really caused a lot of problems leading up to that attack was the lack of sharing information. And I can tell you that in Northeast Florida, we've got, again, that great relationship allows us to share information every day, and it will keep all of us safe here in Northeast Florida.
Briefly describe what you propose that will provide additional protection for Jacksonville from acts of terrorism.
You know, as Chief of Homeland Security for JSO and the Director of Investigations of Homeland Security, I was able to sit as the chair of the Regional Domestic Security Task Force. And I can tell you the partnerships that we developed there with our state and federal partners as well as local business owners and the things that we were able to bring back to Jacksonville to keep Jacksonville safe were hugely important. So we have to continue that relationship. I want to see that continue as well. You know, when you talk about training, lots of conversation about training for officers, which is important. But we also need to train our business owners and our citizens about what to look for and tell them that, look, no piece of information is too small. That small piece of information that you have may be the final piece of the puzzle that we need, you know, to deter a terrorist attack in our community. So we really have to get a push out to the citizens and business owners again in our community and share information with them and provide them some training and awareness about what to look for and what may be important to us. And then lastly, an enhanced piece of training for the officers. Again, we've touched officers with training in the past that's been very effective, but you have to refresh that. You have to keep going back to that and reminding officers about what's important for us. I think over the last several years, the focus on terrorism has probably waned a bit at the local level, and I think it's important for us to keep officers tuned into that, and a good, robust training program will do that.
What changes would you make in the Sheriff's Department, and why?
Well, there are a few things that have to happen really on day one, and some steps you have to take on day one. I think the first thing for me is to really build a qualified and experienced staff that reflects the diversity of the community and put those people in the right places. And begin to do the work of the people, you know, begin to work the day-to-day operation of the Sheriff's Office. I think one of the next big steps for us is really to fight, you know, through the budget process to get those 147 officers back and those 92 CSOs back. We tried to get 40 and 40 back this past budget year. We weren't able to do that. And we can't get them all back at one time, I understand that, but I think it's important for us to get that number back on the street and then evaluate where we are. And you know, the one number that I keep coming back to is back in 2011 we had murder in Jacksonville as low as it's been since 1970 when we had those numbers on the street. So I can't help but think that we can get there again, you know, with those numbers. So I'm going to push for that on day one. And then lastly, you know, I want to see our response to resistance process open back up again for the public. It is a huge issue for me, and I feel strongly that our community should trust our agency. And the process being closed today does not help us build any trust. As a matter of fact, it hurts us in that area. So I think we have to open that process back up again. The process is our response to resistance process when we have an officer who's brought before that board for a use of force, typically an officer-involved shooting. Now that process is closed to the public. So after the press conference that night, after the press conference the next day at 11 o'clock, we are 6 to 9 months of no contact with the media, no contact with the community about that shooting. And there is an entire process that's going on during that time. I think the community should be able to see that process. It should be transparent. And in doing so, I think it will help us, again, build trust in the process and build trust in our agency with that. So,
Mike, would you enforce legislation or executive order to limit the Second Amendment or change existing procedures, and why?
No, I would not. I am a strong Second Amendment supporter. I have been a gun owner all my life and support responsible gun ownership. And I support concealed carry. And I'm one of those that believe we have enough gun laws on the books that we can enforce. We don't need new ones. And I would not support an executive order that again, restricted the Second Amendment at all. So I want to thank the Tea Party for this opportunity. And let me say, when you're making your choice about who your candidate for sheriff will be, I think it's important to think about what's important for Jacksonville today. And we have a serious violent crime problem that we have to get ahead of. And I can tell you that every day of my 23 years experience has been spent working on this program. I haven't taken time out to do other things, be an FOP president or work at the state attorney's office. I've again spent every day of my 23-year career working on crime issues in Jacksonville, and that's what's important for Jacksonville today. So when you look at experience, I would look for experience that's recent and relevant to what we're dealing with in Jacksonville today. My name is Mike Williams, and I'm asking for your vote on March 24th. Thank you.